Space on, bitch.
Hello, everyone. Pod Smashers of the Internet. Welcome to our family-friendly newscast episode for today, December 7th, 2020. We are your hosts.
Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are of 80-Bit Pod Smash, which is generally a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about over video games. Episodes that go live every midnight at Mondays. Every Monday at midnight. And you can find our podcast and all of the links to our platforms at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to all of our social media outlets as well. You can find us right here at twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash every Monday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the newscast where we just walk through the video game news that we care about from the last week. And you can also find us here at twitch.tv on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern, for our gameplay streams. So if you would, cue up your thoughts and percolate your brains and get ready to correct us or ask us questions as we go through tonight's news and put them in chat. And around 5 minutes or so at the end, 5 to 10 minutes or so, whatever we do, we will answer questions and address some of the concerns that we may have risen. Nothing like that has come up, but you never know. So what are we going to talk about tonight?
Tonight we are going to be covering lots of news. There's a lot of stuff. So,
A lot of cool things.
A lot of crazy stuff has been happening in the past few weeks. We're going to cover an Oxford University study about the wellness, or people's wellness as it relates to video games, so it's kind of interesting. We're going to talk about some more drama at BioWare, which is also interesting. I suppose I could say that for all of these things.
Yeah.
The Cyberpunk Review Embargo lifted, so we'll be talking about what people's overall thoughts are before we go into actually having the game in our hands this week. We will be talking about some news regarding a Metal Gear movie and a casting for a particular character. And we'll talk about some promotions and stuff that are going on over at Naughty Dog. And lastly, we'll be talking about some drama between Nintendo and their own fans. So that will be, that's pretty interesting.
Nintendo's going crazy. Yeah.
So, yeah, we talked about the show and where else you can see us. We talked about chat, and
there's a major gaming event happening this week. What are we doing for it? What is it?
Right, so the Game Awards is on Thursday, so we will be streaming, like a stream mirror of that, so you'll be able to watch it with us if you would like to, live, or you can watch our reactions to it, obviously, if you're watching it later. So that will go up on YouTube after we are done streaming it, but we will also be live at 6:30, starting with the pre-show, this Thursday. And
December 10th,
yeah,
6:30 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, right here. We'll do a live watch along. We'll have a screen share of the whole event, and we'll just react to it instead of using Twitter like we've done in the past.
Yep. So, and then next week there will be a new episode about the Game Awards. So we'll be talking sort of about the show at large, and then that same Monday. No, in 2 weeks we'll have a Christmas episode where you'll get to see us open presents we got each other. So lots going on this month. We're Christmas spirit all up ons with our hats. Every time you see us stream live this month, we'll probably be wearing the Christmas hats. So
and my handy dandy Sacred Symbols PlayStation knitted sweater that is amazing. It's my favorite thing ever.
I won't be wearing it. All right, so let's jump right into the news stories, and we'll start with this Oxford University study that says that video games are good for someone's well-being, or for people's well-being. What? That's crazy. I thought video games caused us to be violent masochists.
That's exactly why I put this in here, because this is a really cool feel-good story about video games. This comes by way of BBC News, written by Zoe Kleinman.
So you know it's legit.
Yeah, exactly. And they have if you click on the link, they have a terrifying picture, by the way. It's hilarious. Like, what? So the idea here is people who play video games for long periods of time tend to report feeling happier than those who do not. A study has indicated. An Oxford Internet Institute research focused on 2 games, Nintendo's Animal Crossing and EA's Plants vs. Zombies. In an unusual step, the developers of the games shared anonymized, that's a cool word, data about how long each participant has played. These logs were then linked to a survey in which the players answered questions about their well-being. They had like over 3,000 gamers, and they were all over the age of 18. In previous research, Data gathered about the duration of the subjects' gaming sessions were based on self-reported guesstimates, which can be inaccurate. So this is a little bit more accurate study, a little bit more controlled. Here are our surprise findings. Nintendo solely provided data on playing times in Animal Crossing New Horizons, but EA also shared some data about in-game performance within Plants vs. Zombies, Battle for Neighborville. This included achievements in the emoticons and the participants had used to express themselves. The gamers were also asked how they felt about their experiences. Professor Andrew, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name, who led the study, said he was surprised by the results. If you play Animal Crossing for 4 hours a day, every single day, you're likely to say you feel significantly happier than someone who doesn't. That doesn't mean Animal Crossing by itself makes you happy. But, he added, 40 years of previous research had suggested the longer people played, the more unhappy they said they were. So this is contrary to that. The academic suggested that one reason for the discrepancy might be that both of these games had social features in which players interacted with characters controlled by other humans. I don't think people plow a bunch of time into games with a social aspect unless they're happy about it. It's like a digital water cooler, suggesting both titles provide new ways to mingle with others online. However, he said that those who had felt compelled to play, for example, because they were seeking to avoid stress everywhere in their lives, had reported being less content. So it goes on. Yeah, it's a little bit. There's actually like a tiny blurb at the end, but this is really cool. Video games are always in the conversation about, are we wasting our time? Are they valid? You know, you always have the image of the person in the basement who's connected to their computer or games, and they're just wasting away, and they're rotting their brains, and they're wasting their time. But here we go. Like, there's an actual academic study that's never been done to this level of control that proves video games make you happy. How cool is that?
It's cool. I don't think this study is end all be all, especially because the guy himself even said that like 40 years of previous research said the exact opposite. But it's okay. I think it doesn't mean it shouldn't be talked about. It's still very interesting findings. I would have been. It seems like their data points were all people who would probably self-identify as gamers.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested to see what effect the same study had on people who don't, but people who are like, hey, play these games. It's also self-reporting can get kind of wonky too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think their choice of video games that they studied is telling as well, because I wonder if the self-reported level of happiness would be higher or lower for a game like Demon Souls. I don't know.
Right.
It's fresh on my mind. So,
that doesn't make you happy.
It actually did make me happy, but it also came with a certain level of frustration. So I don't know. I don't think this is suddenly like, oh, okay, yeah, like this is the end all be all. This is now the Bible gospel of video game studies, but it's still pretty interesting findings nevertheless.
There's other, I can't remember, I don't have any links to any official articles, but within the last 2 years, this is not the only article that has done this kind of study with this kind of reporting result. So it is becoming more normalized, and it's things are helping. Things like this help video games get into help validate video games to the non-gamers. So it's a trend, and this is another bullet point.
Link to it next time your parents are like, "You're wasting your time with video games."
Yeah, like read this. Read this, Mom. Come on, Mom. Read this. I'm happy.
Cool. All right, moving on. There's some stuff happening over at BioWare. They've had two pretty high-level people leave the studio, and these are names I recognize from back when Anthem was a hotbed of discussion. So Casey Hudson and Mark Dara leave the studio, and all current project plan to continue.
Yep.
So this is not affecting Dragon Age 4 or Mass Effect remaster. Other than what effect, it's not. Those games are still being made. It very well may affect the final product, but these two guys were pretty big names. Casey Hudson was the general manager, and Mark Dara was the executive producer of Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
He was also the executive producer, I believe, of Anthem previously, and but yeah. So, did you want to?
Sure, we can keep going. Just also note that this article went live the same day Jeff Keighley announced that BioWare's Dragon Age 4 is going to be showed off at the Game Awards. So I thought that was interesting. Like, oh, okay, so I guess the show must go on. EA has announced, this is by Jonathan Dornbush over at IGN, EA has announced that Casey Hudson, the general manager of BioWare, and Mark Dara, the executive producer of the upcoming Dragon Age, will be departing the company. All currently ongoing projects, including Anthem Next, I guess that's the name. That's like a proper noun. That's Anthem Next with 2 capital letters. Is that what they're calling Anthem 2.0?
I don't know.
Anyway, the next Dragon Age and Mass Effect Legendary Edition remasters among them will continue as planned despite the leadership shifts. Samantha Ryan will continue to oversee the studio, while Christian Daly, who joined BioWare from Blizzard, will now be leading the Dragon Age project as executive producer, with Matthew Goldman remaining as creative director on the project, and the Mass Effect collection will continue to be led by Mike Gamble, as that team also remains hard at work on the future of that franchise. Remember, they had a teaser that they're making a new Mass Effect game that's not officially announced by title, other than just the teaser. This marks Hudson's second departure from BioWare. If you remember, he first left the studio in 2014 and announced a new position at Microsoft in 2015. Then he came back to BioWare in 2017, when then GM Aaron Flynn stepped down. So 3 years ago, they had a GM step down, and now this happens. And while the company searches for a new GM, Gary McKay, the Senior Director of Development Operations, will act as interim studio general manager. Quote, they will always be an important part of the studio's history. We appreciate their many contributions and look forward to seeing what they'll each do next. The chief studios officer said.
If you're interested. It always makes me, when these situations always makes me wonder. I always think of the ship of Theseus, like if you're not familiar with what the ship of Theseus is,
I have no idea.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old philosopher's question. If you have the ship of Theseus and you repair a piece of the ship of Theseus, it's still arguably the ship of Theseus. But if you repair so many pieces, you repair the mast, you repair the sail, you repair each and every single plank that makes up the ship. Eventually, is it still the ship of Theseus if all the parts of it have been replaced? If all the parts have been replaced, Theseus is dead. The easier way of saying it is if you have a broom and you replace the handle, and then later you replace the bristles, is it still the same broom?
Right.
And so I always think of this with like Blizzard and BioWare. It's like, if all the people who made the company what it was and made the games what they were, if all of them have left, is it still the same company? Even if it's got the name, even if it's got all the IPs, right, and everything, like, is it still the same? One could make the argument in both cases, but yeah, it's just a lot of shakeups. I feel like every other week now we have people who are like, these really big important names of this studio have left now and are now doing their own thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
And all that Casey Hudson switching around and stuff happened either at or during the Mass Effect Andromeda debacle, where they flopped that, and then right on the heels of that was Anthem, which was another flop. So BioWare's not doing too great right now.
Right. Yep. And losing talent. I don't even know if you can say
maybe
talent if they've just had consistent flops. Maybe this is a good move for BioWare. It's hard to tell though. So it's hard to tell how much EA's influence comes to play. You know what I mean? So it's way too complicated to say. Nevertheless, these are guys who have done talented things in the past, at the very least, and are leaving. So it doesn't seem like it seems like they are leaving of their own accord, that they have decided to leave as opposed to being fired. So
it makes you wonder, like, EA is always the easy bad guy in all these situations. Right. So are they leaving because of EA interactions and what they're forcing on BioWare? Are they just done, or is this a BioWare internal issue that's going on? Like,
who knows? That's all speculation at this point, but interesting nonetheless.
Yep.
So, any other thoughts on BioWare?
Nope.
Cool. Moving along. Let's see here. Oh, so Cyberpunk's review embargo lifted. We don't have to spend too much time here because we'll probably talk more about it ourselves as we go. But seems to have the overall opinion so far. We'll link off to Metacritic's page on it. It's sitting at 91 on Metacritic right now with 41 different reviews.
It's pretty good.
That's really good. That's very good. The overall consensus is the version of the game that the reviewers have played was a PC version, and it seems to be very, very buggy. So despite the bugs, though, people say that despite the bugs, the experience is pretty good. There did seem to be a pretty critical consensus from some of the more progressive outlets that it doesn't really say anything new, doesn't really say anything groundbreaking, but it's still fun and enjoyable nonetheless. So maybe not Last of Us Part 2 level ethos, but at the very least, it sounds like it'll at least be a very fun RPG experience. So and then who knows about the bugs, because as you pointed out, they didn't get a hold of console versions, and the console versions are going to have like a 42 gigabyte patch day one, and another update.
Yeah, the 43 gigabyte day one patch did go live for the reviewers. That happened. They tweeted a screenshot of them downloading it and said, "This is they," as in Cyberpunk's like PR people. Tweeted that and said, "There's another one. This is not the only one." So there'll be a 43 gig patch plus whatever changes they make available as the day one patch for the consoles. Gotcha. So maybe it's a day zero patch.
Maybe
I don't know what you call that, but yeah, huge. I mean, 43 gigs for a patch.
Like, if it's not day one, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because that 43 gig patch was for the reviewers and the early influencers, not for the general public. So it's a second update coming, and they'll probably bundle them together, and then that'll be the new day one patch. But anyway, it's massive updates are coming before the public gets their hands on it. So what we're seeing. Also, the Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red has restricted the reviewers' ability to show any of their gameplay footage for now, and they're only allowed to show curated footage directly from CD Projekt Red.
They don't want that memed. They don't want that going around. Like, they don't want any janky faces or anything getting memed, or like half cut off heads or anything like that, or T poses. They don't want any of that.
They're definitely hiding something
before the release. I mean, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that kind of footage gets around before
the game is released,
that could actually affect release date, like day one sales.
Yep.
So
the funny part was the reviews I've heard said we have the gameplay footage, and as soon as we get the permission to post it, we will. And so it's like they're not, it's only a temporary pause on the jank.
I'm like, just let it be. I don't know. Let it be what it is. I think it's kind of scummy that they're so scared. Obviously, they're hiding something, right? Like they know that they've got a product that is somewhat faulty. The general consensus seems to be that it could have used a little bit more time in the oven, but with all the delays and crunch they've already had, they've already been so much in the news.
There's a little video playing here on the Metacritic page of like some trailers, and I'm getting hyped. I want to play it so bad. It looks so good.
I think it'll be still a fun game. So take that for what you will. If you are on the fence, let that news of the reviews be what it is.
Yep.
We will not try to sway you one way or another. I will simply say for myself, I'm excited to play it. I've got a copy coming that's been completely covered by gift money from previous Christmases, actually. So that's pretty fun. So, anyways, is there anything else you want to say about Cyberpunk before we move on? Cool.
Let's go.
Moving right along. We're just chugging through these news stories.
Chugga.
All right, we got time. So a Metal Gear movie was announced. I don't think it's been officially like ordered or anything like that, but it's in the works, so it's in pre-production. And they have cast an actor as Solid Snake, and drum roll please. The actor who will be playing Solid Snake is Oscar Isaac, who played Poe in Star Wars and has done a lot of cool stuff. Actually, he's a good actor. So
Dune.
He is not Henry Cavill, which is what we wanted. But I think he'll still be.
Maybe Henry Cavill. We'll hold out for Liquid Snake.
Right. One would argue that Oscar Isaac would make still a pretty solid.
Hey, puns all intended all around. You are sort of incorrect. I'm gonna correct you. The Metal Gear Solid movie has been in the works since 2012, when Konami and series creator Hideo Kojima revealed that Hollywood adaptation was in the works with producer Avi Arad. In 2014, Vogue Roberts became a frontrunner to helm Sony Pictures' Metal Gear project prior to his work on Kong Skull Island. So it has been in the works for 8 years.
Okay, but they haven't started filming, so I was right. It is still in pre-production.
I don't know that phase, but I mean the movie's been ordered. It's been who knows? That's kind of concerning. 8 years,
which is what I've been saying.
Right?
In pre-production.
I don't know timelines of movies.
If they have just cast the actor who played Solid Snake, it means they haven't started production yet.
I don't know, like, when does the script get written? When does it get greenlit? When does the funding come in? Like, when does the studio get picked? Like, all those things.
I'm interested by the choice of. I'm interested in the choice of Oscar Isaac. I haven't seen everything that he's in, obviously, so he could very well have a role that's like similar to what I would expect from Solid Snake. But I think of Solid Snake as just like a no-nonsense BA, just like get the job done kind of guy. And Oscar Isaac, I just think of him as Poe, who is this kind of swashbuckling Han Solo roguish type.
Right.
And so I think he's a solid performer one way or another. And if he's cast as no-nonsense, get the job done BA guy, then he'll do that just fine. But I don't know if
I mean, all we have to go by now is his face. and it works. Put a band on him and a beard, and he'll be good to go. You know.
Well, you can see his other performances to get a sense as to what his performance, what his acting style is like. But
that's like, will he be a good Solid Snake? I think so. I'm excited. This hypes me up. I'm hyped.
It's hyped
sounds
that
good.
it's even happening. That's cool. I mean, we still have yet to really see the true video game, the promise of a true video game movie. We've seen better ones over the years, but we're not still in Doom. We're not still in the Rock's Doom, Diesel Doom, whoever it was in that.
Yep.
We're not in those days anymore, but neither have we hit the Iron Man of video game movies yet. So something that takes the world by storm that everybody's into and spawns a whole, Yeah,
didn't Assassin's Creed flop? Did you know there was?
Assassin's Creed, it flopped pretty hard.
Yeah,
so,
and there was a bad Prince of Persia movie. But the most recent Tomb Raider was pretty good.
Tomb Raider, but it wasn't like, I'm talking like Iron Man, where it's like it's
right. Whereas
Iron Man brought comic books so far forward that it basically spawned an entire genre of filmmaking.
Yep.
We haven't gotten that yet. So,
right. I totally agree.
Any one of these could be that, though. Could be with the Last of Us TV show and Metal Gear. There's tons of possibility here. So exciting.
Yes.
It's great that it's being made. So
I'm excited. Oh, there's also a rumor. Salt. Take this with lots of grains of salt, but apparently there is Bluepoint is working on a Metal Gear Solid 1 remake for PlayStation 5, and Sony has patched up their relationship with Konami, and so because Hideo Kojima doesn't really need to be involved if it's a remake because the content's already there, and so apparently there's some sources that are credible that are claiming some things are happening, and get this is the biggest grain of salt right here. This is the giant ball of salt that it's going to be announced at the Game Awards. Holy crap! If that happens, I'm gonna lose it. Because
there's some people have expectations with this Game Awards. People are like, Elden Ring's gonna be shown.
No, I don't know about that. No, don't get crazy. Don't get crazy.
Don't get crazy. This is George R. R. Martin we're talking about.
Right.
Elden Ring's never gonna be finished.
PlayStation 9, when he's dead, we'll have this AI brain make it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Speaking of Naughty Dog, which was brought up a few minutes ago with the Last of Us show. There's some news at Naughty Dog. There have been a lot of promotions, and most high-profile promotion, Neil Druckmann, the kind of lead writer, lead designer of The Last of Us Part 2, has been promoted to co-president along with their current president. So
Evan Wells.
Pretty big deal. Congratulations to Neil.
Rebecca Valentine, one of my favorite writers in video game journalism, period, from gamesindustry.biz, writes, The Last of Us Part 2 creative director and Naughty Dog vice president Neil Druckmann has been given a promotion and will now serve as president of the studio alongside Evan Wells. That was the name you were looking for. Yes. In a blog post, Wells announced the news following an all-studio meeting alongside the promotions of Allison Mori and Christian Gyrling to vice president. So we have two new vice presidents now. Mori formerly was Naughty Dog's director of operations, and Gyrling served as co-director of programming. So we have lots of things moving up in the company. The last quote here is, "We have such an incredible team at Naughty Dog, and being able to work alongside each and every one of them is especially meaningful these days." Wrote Evan Wells, the other president. "I feel proud of the team, and I'm able to recognize their accomplishments and contributions to the studio." So those folks will be backfilled.
You get people whose names start to outgrow their own studios, and I mean, you saw that with Hideo Kojima, and Konami is kind of one example of that. And you see the occasion. I mean, Chris Metzen back at Blizzard a long time ago, his name kind of outgrew Blizzard. What I mean by that is, most of the time when you think about a video game, you think about, if you're into this kind of thing, you think about who's the studio that made it, and you think of that studio as a team, as a single entity, with no single person kind of rising above that. But every once in a while that does happen, and that's kind of what's happening to Neil Druckmann now. Again, his name was all over the place. People were talking about him with The Last of Us Part 2, and Part 1, of course, but but a little bit more, because Amy Hennig, was she still around with Last of Us Part 1? So she also was kind of a name that was kind of outgrowing the studio itself. And I would argue that she probably overshadowed Druckmann a little bit in those days. But now Neil, being again the sole writer of Part 2, is starting to kind of rise above that, and then also being involved directly with the show being made. That's where the other kind of area his news has been in recently. That it's a good move. I think it's all that's just to say that I think it's a good move because Druckmann is starting to kind of get a persona a sort of a following of his own alongside Naughty Dog. So to give him a place of influence, I think, is probably a wise choice. So yeah, that would be my hot take on it.
Yeah. Hennig left Naughty Dog in 2014 after doing Uncharted 4. She began work there and then left. So I don't think she's contributed any work to Last of Us. I think that was Druckmann's baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, but she is a name that has, spawned hype, like who's she working for? What's she doing now? Speaking of her, actually, I ordered, side note, the Legacy of Kain 2 for PlayStation 2, Soul Reaver 2. Sorry, and I'm excited to get that in the mail. But that's an aside. You know what'll happen. So that's about it. Yeah, Naughty Dog's making moves. People inside the company are making moves. Neil Druckmann will be infamous for ever. He'll be actually famous, not infamous, but he's famous. So that's cool.
Cool.
Now,
let's talk about Nintendo.
The rivalry.
Here's the big one.
Nintendo versus its fans. There's a whole lot to unpack here. So I'm going to start with an article. This is in chronological order. This is an article from The Verge. The very first kind of misstep, and this is the smallest misstep that Nintendo has made. They've only made it worse ever since this. But so from The Verge, Addy Robertson, give them the click.
This is probably the most understandable misstep. I would argue. It's not the smallest.
That's what I meant. It's exactly
one, but it's the one that I'm the most on Nintendo's side for. Everything else is just ooh, come on, guys.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So what happened? A major Super Smash Bros. Tournament is canceling plans to move online amid the coronavirus pandemic, following a legal order by Nintendo. As Polygon reports, the Big House, that's the name of typically one of the year's biggest Smash competitions, announced yesterday that it's shutting down its early December event and offering refunds. Quote, "The Big House is heartbroken to share that we've received a cease and desist from Nintendo." The organizers wrote on Twitter, "We are forced to comply with the order and cancel the Big House online." Nintendo objected to the organizers using Slippy, a software tool that makes Super Smash Bros. Melee playable online. The 2001 GameCube title is a mainstay in competitive Super Smash Bros., and translating its hyper-fast-paced gameplay from an in-person tournament requires unofficial modding. But in a statement to Polygon, Nintendo rejected the decision. Nintendo appreciates the love and dedication the fighting game community has for the Super Smash Bros. Series. This is a quote from Nintendo. "We have partnered with numerous Super Smash Bros. Tournaments in the past. Unfortunately, the upcoming Big House tournament announced plans to host an online tournament for Super Smash Bros. Melee that requires use of illegally copied versions of the game in conjunction with a mod called Slippy during their online event. Nintendo therefore contacted the tournament organizers to ask them to stop. They refused, leaving Nintendo no choice but to step in to protect its intellectual property and brands. Nintendo cannot condone or allow piracy of its intellectual property." So, Nintendo did the right thing. Nintendo reached out and said, "Hey, stop." And they did not listen. They went on with it anyway, and then Nintendo had to follow suit with the cease and desist.
Yeah, let's stop real quick here. We'll pause. Yeah. We won't spend too much time here because we have there's a meta narrative to talk about here as well.
Yep.
But we'll just say that I agree that Nintendo had the right to say don't use illegal copies of our game for your tournament. That's fair. It's unfortunate because it's a series of kind of smaller bad decisions and unfortunate things where it's there's a pandemic, so they're trying to make a good call. The organizers of the tournament were let's keep our competitors safe, let's keep our audience members safe, and let's try to do this all digitally. And here is a way we can do that. It was not a legal way. Their first mistake was just announcing it without coming to Nintendo. If they should have come to Nintendo first and been here's our plan, to let Nintendo reject it there before it became a public thing. You know what I mean? So that was where I'm a little bit annoyed with Nintendo is okay, you supposedly care about the dedication your fans have, but you're not willing to work with them. You're not willing to come up with some kind of solution. Maybe create a cloud-based solution. I don't know, something they could do to. They should have. I feel like they could have tried to partner better and gotten a lot better press out of the result of this.
And I can see their answer being a canned response of, "Oh, we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Switch, which is totally online based. Here you go." But then they don't have the backing for that because they
that's not the point.
Right.
It's a Melee tournament. It's a tournament for a game that came out 20-something years ago, and that's
but GameCubes aren't online, and so there's this mod. There's no way to track DRM, digital rights management, to determine what copies are being used. There's emulators happening and PCs, and it's a mess.
It sucks. I mean, it's ultimately a sucky thing, but Nintendo decided to get even more petty about it in the next story that we have here.
Yeah, so this actually, the result of the Smash Bros. Tournament resulted in a hashtag called, hashtag Free Melee. And then that went rampant all across the internet, fan outrage, etc., rightfully so. And then this happened next. So this comes by way of Polygon. Patricia Hernandez writes, Splatoon 2 tournament was supposed to conclude over the weekend in early December, but everything fell apart last minute, all because the participants wanted to show solidarity with a different competitive game. Smash Bros. Melee. So the North American Open, which had over 291 teams competing for a chance to win a trophy valued at $200, allowed groups to register under whatever banner they saw fit. And so 4 top teams, FT Win, Enlightenment, Bocut Nation, and Southern Lights, all signed up under the slightly different monikers. Respectively, these teams became FTW, or FT Wave Dash, Slippy, Melee Nation, and Melee Lights for the event. Why all the Smash Bros. References in a totally unrelated competition? Well, it was an act of solidarity. Recently, Nintendo came under fire because of the shutdown of the Smash Bros. Tournament, and they wanted to use the platform. Organizers opted for... sorry, I am reading stuff I already read, so I don't want to write that again. Yeah, they're all showing solidarity for what's happening. Hashtag Free Melee, right? So it started off fine, but then the brackets unfolding to determine who would be in the finals on December 6th. Reportedly, the live stream showcasing the top contenders got canceled. It's very Blitzchung-esque. Canceled over unexpected executional challenges, at least according to the screenshot of an announcement that transpired in the Discord group. Polygon reached out to Nintendo for clarification, but did not hear back. So I want to hear Nintendo's reason. There's a whole bunch. This is a very, very big article here, and
I don't think Nintendo actually made a formal response. What the organizers of the event ended up doing was organizing their own event called the Squid House, which ended up raising more money than the pot for the original tournament and had more viewers. Like, they ended up getting better press than... And
the Squid House was a reference to the canceled Big House Melee event, and they raised $25,000. The event organizers had to place a cap that directed any additional funds to charity. Even wilder than that,
So crazy.
The last-minute event ended up offering the largest Western Splatoon 2 prize pool ever, outstripping even what Nintendo has officially offered in the past. Viewer records were so high, shattered as Smash Bros. And Splatoon fans came together to show support. So, yeah.
It's so crazy. I mean, it's there's this effect, and I actually want to do a podcast episode on this because this is becoming more and more prominent and more relevant over time. So maybe we'll do one very soon, early in the year. But it's called the Streisand effect, and it's named after Barbara Streisand. If you want to know, I'll save the details of that for an episode that we do on the Streisand effect. The bottom line is, it keeps happening. The bottom line of what the Streisand effect is when you try to cut down on, like, when you're trying to crack down on something and send a message to not mess with, no, don't mess with my stuff, basically. When the Streisand effect happens, the opposite happens, and you end up getting bad press. Whereas you're trying to, like, hey, I'm taking a hard stance on something, back off, and try to look like the person who's trying to protect their stuff, only to then have it turn around because, it's an unpopular decision. It's called the Streisand effect. Mm-hmm. And why it's named after Barbara Streisand, I can talk about another time. But right. Blitzchung's the other example of this that's happened recently is, like, by taking the stance Nintendo did, they ended up drawing more bad press to them, and they ended up being the bad guys. And people are always going to take the sides of the underdogs in this country. You know what I mean? So... Nintendo's this big Japanese company that's coming in and messing with the poor grassroots little organized tournaments who just want. But yeah, I mean, they cancel the event. Like, why would just take your licks, Nintendo? Take your licks.
Yeah, it gets worse. Understand. It continues on. One quick side note: I don't want to compare this to Blitzchung too much because the Hong Kong protests were a humanitarian effort. They were actual oppressed people that mattered, and like people's lives were at risk, and a tyrannical government was running over them. Where this is just like, okay, a tournament. A video game tournament, it's not happening, right? So there's way more serious with Blitzchung, but the company, I understand the comparison of how Blizzard and Nintendo are both responding and canceling live streams and like. They're
still both, no matter the severity doesn't matter. They are still both examples of the Streisand effect. So.
Yep. And then the last bit that continued on. This is a separate, unrelated issue, but it's another thing Nintendo did in this sea of negativity that is drawing a lot more hate. And this is like. Kind of reaching into the humanitarian effort. And I'll read this from Polygon, from Owen S. Good. I know we're over time, but this is worth it. A legal threat from Nintendo has shut down the manufacturing and sale of custom-designed Joy-Con controllers honoring Desmond Etika Amofa. So they're called Etikons, for his name. Mm-hmm. Though the cease and desist demand was sent more than 2 months ago, news of it broke this weekend and drew widespread condemnation for Nintendo. So what is this whole thing? The controllers called Etikons, they earned more than $36,000 in funding on Indiegogo in August 2019, shortly after Amofa died. With a YouTube following of more than 800,000, Amofa was celebrated for his over-the-top reaction videos and his fandom for Super Smash Bros. And other Nintendo franchises. Amofa died by suicide in June 2019 after uploading a disturbing video in which he discussed thoughts of self-harm. Late Saturday evening, the Indiegogo's project creator, Captain Alex, said that Nintendo sent him the cease and desist at the end of September. Proceeds from each sale had gone to the JED Foundation, whose mission it was to support the mental health of teens and young adults to prevent suicide. So he was not really making money on these Joy-Cons. He was trying to raise awareness and funds to help prevent and promote help for mental help and against suicide. So according to the report from Daily Pot, Captain Alex said Nintendo's problem was with the use of the trademark, not the modification of their hardware. The Etikons bore a logo saying Joy-Con Boys. Apparently, he could remake the controllers without the Joy-Con Boys logos, but that would require another factory run and a fundraiser to support it. On Sunday, the Joy-Con Boys official YouTube account published a video condemning Nintendo's actions. Nintendo's legal and executive teams are by far the worst and most outdated, money-hungry people that exist in the gaming scene, he said. The account said in a follow-up comment, "And that's where my problem lies. I just want Nintendo to change for the better and stop treating us like trash." And of course, there's no comment from Nintendo.
Gosh, Nintendo, what? So this is again, this is all breaking the same weekend, basically. It's just bad press after bad press for Nintendo, and honestly, they deserve it. In this case, they deserve it probably more than the other ones.
Right, this is the worst offender.
It's just relax. I get it. You got to protect your IP, but sometimes you have to know the difference between protecting your IP and being jerks, you know what I mean? So I know we're over time, but it's totally it's crazy. I mean, I love Nintendo, but and people are still gonna buy Nintendo games. It may not hurt their bottom line, but with the importance and emergence of esports and tournaments being additional money makers, that's where this could hurt them. You know what I mean? If people no longer want to watch Nintendo sanctioned events, then that's money that Nintendo is wasting and throwing away hosting tournaments and stuff like that. If people decide to boycott the viewership of those, that's ad money down the drain. That's all kinds of stuff that they could stand to lose. So I do wonder how much effect this may ultimately have on them. People may still buy their games because they love their games, but they may not, want anything to do with Nintendo's events if they continue to act like this. And that's just the events thing. I mean, the Joy-Con one is just so that is so ridiculous. So
yeah, I mean, Nintendo
straight up angry.
Nintendo's always been well known for ridiculous, aggressive protection of trademarks and property.
Disney. Like Disney.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing if Nintendo made a donation to the JED Foundation, or here's this massive pot of money that is well beyond the scope of what these Joy-Cons would make. Here, take this money. We support your cause, and we'll help you raise awareness and partner with you and work and do that. But you can't use our Joy-Cons. That softens the blow so much. You're okay, I can give my fans refunds, and maybe Nintendo matches the money, right? So if I'm a customer and I ordered an Etikon because I care about this and I spent $50, maybe Nintendo matches my $50 to the JED Foundation, right? And then says, you're not going to get the Joy-Cons unless you change the Joy-Con Boys logo, and we'll help you reproduce all of these Joy-Cons without that logo. There's so much easy, just we'll work with this. How much money does Nintendo have? And the message would look so much better. Nintendo would look like an amazing, charitable,
heroes. Incredibly altruistic, but the opposite's happening.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you have this short-sighted, cease and desist, you can't do this, which I'm sure they violate, okay, maybe you're printing the word Joy-Con, it does violate your terms and conditions. So he's
no,
but still,
Nintendo's not in the wrong when it comes to a legal standpoint.
Right,
on
exactly.
This.
They're just
But something being legal doesn't necessarily make something right. You know what I mean? You've
bah
always
humbug.
heard that. And so exactly. Something. Yeah. So that's where I'm on with that. But anyways, we are over time. So if you have we don't see any thoughts. Sorry, I should have given you some kind of warning, listeners, viewers. If you wanted to have any thoughts, so feel free to shoot us a chat message in the next few minutes. We will read anything that comes in before we do our farewells, or as we are doing our, where you can find us. But other than that, let's go ahead and let the listeners, viewers, and anybody who is consuming this in any way know where they can find more content from us.
So again, I am Termite. These are host. He is.
I'm Penguin.
And we are 80-Bit Pod Smash. And you can find us every single Monday at midnight at 80bitpodsmash.com, doing a podcast every week. We haven't missed a single week in 3 years, so please jump in. We're on episode 170. I don't even know where we are in the numbers.
Well, we're going to record 170 tonight. But
there you go.
168 just dropped. 168 just dropped. Yep.
And we're on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, I just said a bunch of stuff over again. You can find our social media links: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. Yes, we have our own subreddit. And all information is 80bitpodsmash.com, as well as our YouTube link. That is important. You can find us at youtube.com. We're not cool enough to have our own channel name, so the link is on the website, and you can find these videos for on-demand consumption as they go live each week, and I will upload it immediately upon finishing. So let us know, give us feedback, interact with us, hit the like and subscribe button so that you can follow us on all of our platforms to keep up with what we're doing when we do it.
All right, y'all. See you next week.